multiply by a form of 1. Can someone tell me what I need to multiply by?
3 times radical 5.
Root 5.
Root 5 plus 2.
No. Minus 2 root 3 over 3 radical 5 minus 2 root 3.
Why did you change the sign?
Because if you don't change the sign, it will not get rid of the radical. If you don't change the sign, it won't get rid of the radical. You have to do the opposite. You have to do the opposite sign. So if you do this, what does the numerator become? What do you multiply that 2 by? Both things. On the quiz I'm going to give back to you today, some of you just multiplied it by the first thing. What's the numerator become?
6
root 5. Yep.
minus 4 root 3.
Exactly. The bottom, 3 root 5 times 3 root 5 is what? Because someone's moving in the room upstairs. 3 root 5 times 3 root 5, what's that?
3 root 5 is 9. Or just 3.
It's 9 times. 3 root 5 times 3 root 5. What's that equal?
Oh,
9 what?
5.
Times 5, which is what?
45.
So we have 45. What's 3 root 5 times negative 2 root 3? It's minus 6 root what? 15, exactly. And then what's this one right here? No, it's not the same exact thing. That's not the same thing. 15, yep. And then what's 2 root 3 times, so what's 2 root 3 times negative 2 root 3? Negative 4, no. No. Negative 4, what's root 3 times root 3? 3, so what's it come out to be?
Negative 12.
Negative 12.
Table.
Minus 12, exactly. It's just what's under, exactly. Think of table. That's why I say it over and over again. It doesn't matter what's underneath. The square root of a table times the square root of a table is a table. What cancels in the middle? Yeah, if you didn't do opposite signs, those wouldn't cancel. What's 45 minus 12?
33.
Mm-hmm. No, not 36. Sorry, I'm writing weird numbers. 6 root 5 minus 4 root 3 all over what?
33.
Done. You are done. The key, you're multiplying by a form of 1 and it has to be the minus. If you don't do that, it won't rationalize the denominator. It just won't rationalize the denominator. Okay, any others from 8.5 first? Isolate one of the radicals. So how are you going to do that, Chris?
Add 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I can get square root of 2r plus 11 equals the square root of 5r plus 1 minus 1. Are you with me so far? I just added that thing to the other side. What do you do now? Square both sides. Square both. Square both. Can you square each individual thing? No. So you square both sides. So you actually do this. What does that mean when you square both sides? Well, you're multiplying by what over? Oh, the same thing, right? What does the left side is nice. What does the left side become?
2r.
Yeah. And what happens over here? Well, the square root of 5r plus 1 times the square root of 5r plus 1 is 5r plus 1. And then you get minus root 5r plus 1 minus root 5r plus 1. And what's the last thing you get? Nope. Plus 1. Can you simplify these two things together? Can you combine them?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what does it become? 2r plus 11 equals 5r plus, I'll put these together, plus what? 2? Minus what? 2 of them, right? We need to isolate the radical, so what should I subtract from both sides? Let's subtract the 5r and subtract the 2. Subtract the 5r, subtract the
2.
So what do we get? Negative how many r's? 3r plus 9 is equal to negative 2 times the square root of. And if you wanted to, could you just multiply everything by negative 1 if you wanted to? But you could. You could. If it was me, I would. I just don't. I like to minimize the number of negative signs. So if I multiply everything by negative 1, what do I end up with?
3r minus 9 equals 2.
Yeah. Now what do I do? You don't have to. You could. I wouldn't because I don't like making fractions when I don't have to. What could you do at this point? You could square both sides. And I understand the radical isn't technically isolated. That's okay in this case. When you square both sides here, you end up with 3r minus 9 times, what do you end up with on the right side? 4 times r plus 1. What type of equation do we have now? This is a quadratic. Unfortunately, what do we have, not unfortunate, but what do we have to do now? One word. We have to set it equal to 0, but before that we need to distribute. You could do either one, but you need to distribute, clean it up, right? So what do you end up with? 9r squared minus 27r minus 27r plus what? 81 equals 20r plus 4. Now what do we do? What's our goal now? Set it equal to 0, and then we hope it factors nicely, right? Is it nice if it factors nicely? Yeah, it'd be nice. If it doesn't, then you start doubting whether or not you're doing it correctly, right? Because you're like, man, it should. So what should I subtract from both sides?
The 20R.
Yeah, let's subtract the 20r and the 4. So what do we end up with? We end up with 9r squared minus 47r minus 27r plus what? 77 equals what? Do we have two things we can combine here? Yeah, what do we end up with? 9r squared minus what? 74r plus what? Equals what?
0.
Yeah, at this point, does it equal 0?
Yeah.
Is it most simplified?
Yeah.
Yes. Is there anything else to combine? Is what I mean. No, you can't combine any of those terms. So at this point, what would you have to start trying to do? You have to start trying to.
Terrible thing to factor.
Yeah, it's not, okay, it could be worse. There's always worse, right? But we don't like it for two big reasons. What's one reason we don't?
There's a huge number.
The 77 does not.
And the
Again,
96.
Gabby, I told you earlier today, if you find yourself speaking louder to speak over somebody, stop. What'd you say, David?
The 77.
The 77's not nice, right? At least it's just two numbers multiplied together. Could be worse. It could be like 243, and you're like, there's a lot of factors. What else don't you like?
The coefficient.
Which
The
one?
leading
The leading coefficient isn't
Isn't 1.
it's 9, right? And you're like, great. So you have to choose 3 and 3 or 9 and 1. We could start testing it. We could start going with it. No, it's fine. It's one of those things. Once you find it, you're like, oh, that was not bad. But it can take a while. What'd you choose?
I have negative 11 and negative 6.
Is it 9r minus 11?
What?
Is it
Yeah.
Yeah, 9 or minus 11.
minus 11 and what? R
Seven.
Minus.
minus 7, sorry, minus 7. So if you test this, you end up with 9r squared minus 63r minus 11r plus what? Oh, did you find it?
Yeah.
So it works. Yay. And does that make you feel happy when it works?
Yeah.
If you changed any of the original numbers up here by 1, made it like negative 75, would it work nicely? No. Keep in mind, anything is factorable. Is everything nicely factorable?
No.
No. It could be irrational numbers, imaginary numbers even. So what does this now tell us? It tells us that we have 9r minus 11 times r what? Minus 7 equals what?
0.
So what does the zero product property tell us?
R either equals 0.
Nope.
A or B have to
So tell me what, as it applies here.
R minus
9r minus,
11 has to equal 0.
or,
R minus 7.
correct. So 9r equals 11. So r equals 11 over 9. Or what?
R equals 7.
R equals 7. What should you do at this point? You really need to check. And remember how I said I would really never give you more than one of these? Do you understand why?
Yes.
Like, this is as clean as it gets. And I kind of like crowdsource the factoring, right? Like, even to me, it's not obvious what this is. Like, just do test them, and you'd already tried it, so it helped. The point is, this could take a while. Even when you're doing it perfectly, you need to be prepared to do at least one question like that. Absolutely. What do we not really quote-unquote like about this?
It has a radical
Has a root as a radical in the denominator. That's fine. A radical, it is a radical, but it has a square root. What do we multiply this by? Root 3 over. So we end up with, and I'll just break this up like this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What is the square root of negative 1? So this is I root, and I'll break it up even further, over 3, right? Because what is 75?
25 times 3.
Yeah, this is the same as that. Well, what is the square root of 25? 5. And what's root 3 times root 3? Table.
So we do want to like break it down.
Yes,
like
keep
that?
going. Yep, because what's the answer to this? 5i. Done. Okay, kids. What's 4 minus negative 3? 7. What's I minus negative 2i? Done.
So we didn't have to like
It's not
There's no multiplication present. Do you see any multiplication anywhere?
But normally we have to distribute the negative sign in.
You could, but then you end up with the same thing. You could write it 4 plus I plus 3 plus 2I. And what do you get? The same thing. Yes, Noah. Do that one. Fun times. This beautifully up until the very, very end, and then decided to have basic math just flee and be like, oh, look, pretty, pretty, pretty. Okay, let's just focus all the way to the end. So yeah, you did this really nicely. 1 plus I times 1 plus I, 1 minus I. And I really liked what you did, and then you broke it up doing these two, and then multiplying it together. When you simplified it, you should have ended up with like 1 plus 2I minus I squared. 1 minus 2I minus I squared. But what is I squared? So it cancels and you end up with 2I times negative 2I.
That before the I squared. Yeah, they're both pluses.
These are both pluses. Where?
Nope, move over.
Oh, right here. Thank you. Like this?
Yes.
Yes, correct. So then you end up with negative 4I squared. So you end up with negative 4 times negative 1, which is 4. Finish strong. Most of you got to like here and then decided to, woo! So on this one, what do you multiply by? Tell me what you someone raise their hand. Someone, what do you get?
3 minus 2I.
And
Over.
over.
3 minus 2.
Exactly. And then you do the parentheses so that you can keep track of everything.
Yeah.
What does the top become? What? Negative 3 plus 2I plus 15I minus what? 10I squared? All over what? 9 minus 6I plus 6I minus 4I squared. What is I squared? So you have 3 plus 17I minus 10 times negative 1 over, hey, look, those cancel, right? 9 minus 4 times negative 1, negative what? 1?
So 4 plus 4.
Exactly. 4 plus, yep.
Yeah. Wow.
So what do you end up with here? 3 plus 10 is what? 13 plus
17I.
all over
9 plus 4.
is 13.
I
You can either, you're going to see two things. You're going to see two things. You're going to see the answer written like that, but you're also going to see it written like this. 13 over 13 plus over 13I. What is 13 over 13? So sometimes you'll see it written as 1 plus 17 over 13I. It's the same thing. These are the same. What? Roots involved in this question.
No.
So every time you write a radical, you have to put what above it to the left? 3. If you don't, you are wrong, okay? You can't just drop it because it turns into square root. Are there square roots involved here? No. So the key to this question is understanding how 512 factors. So you do that tree that I taught you, which is you try to break it down. So this is 2 times 256. So then you have 2 times 28. And then you have 2 times 64. And then you have 2 times 32. And then you have stop talking because I asked you to. 2 times 8. And what's nice about this is you look for 3s. Because what does this tell you? You have 2 triples there. So what does this mean? It means you have the cube root of 2. How many of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Because how many 2's do you see right here? 6. So what is 3 of them? What is when you multiply those 3 together? It's 2. When you do these 3, what do you get? 2. But what's left? Not just 8, the cube root of 8. So what's 2 times 2?
4.
So it's 4 times the cube root of 8. But what is the cube root of 8?
2.
So this is 4 times 2, which is 8. Another way to do this, everybody, is the following. Here's another way to do this. The factor tree. Were we done at this point? What can you pull out of 8? 4. What can you pull out of 4?
2.
How many 2's do you have? 3, 3, and 3. So 9 of them. What this tells you, everybody, it tells you that 512 is equal to 2 to the 9th. What power is cube root?
1/3.
Yes. So that's 2 to the 9th to the what power?
1/3.
What's 1/3 times 9?
3.
What's 2 to the 3rd?
8. I think we should just stick to one method for right now.
Here's, if you want my lesson, if you want to know what to focus on to make these easier for you. What's 2 squared? Times 2?
8.
Times 2? Times 2? times 2. 3 squared is cubed. 81, 243. You can keep going with these, right? What's the 4, 16, 64, 256? If you memorize powers, it'll make this a whole lot easier for you. If you memorize powers. Yes.